Welcome friends to a comparison between the 2024 Toyota 4Runner and the 2024 Ford Bronco. And yes, I'm fully aware the Bronco I am testing is not a complete apples to apples comparison with my 4Runner because it comes with the Sasquatch package and those massive mud terrain tires. But not to worry, I've already driven a 4-door Bronco without the Sasquatch package. It was the Outer Banks and it came with regular tires. And I've also driven aggressive 4Runners with the nasty all-terrain tires as well. So I'll be sure to provide you with useful comparisons in this video, not to worry. Because the 4Runner that you're seeing in this video, this is my own personal SUV that I bought. And I guess the main question that needs to be answered here is, did I make a mistake by going with this vehicle over the Bronco? Because I have noticed recently that Ford is really trying to clear out the 2023 Broncos that they currently have in stock across the country. And apparently there's some really good lease deals that can be had on those Broncos, as well as the smaller Bronco as well, the Bronco Sport. There's some really good lease deals on that too. But I'm going to save that towards the end of this video. For now, let's just get into the comparison. As mentioned before, the trim level you get, the model that you get is going to affect things considerably. For instance, the Bronco, it can be had for way less than this 4Runner, but it can also be had for way more money than the 4Runner. It just depends on the trim and what you desire. And the other big thing is the Bronco is available as a 2-door. So if you're a serious off-roader, you can take advantage of that 2-door Bronco. Whereas the 4Runner, it's much more simplistic in its trims and with what it has to offer. There is no 2-door 4Runner. What you see is what you get for the most part. And the most aggressive model is the TRD Pro, which as of right now costs $57,000. And there's no real discounts that can be had on those. And it basically comes with those disgusting Nitto Grappler all-terrain tires and Fox suspension in all 4 corners with a 1-inch lift. You can spend time on both manufacturers' website to see which model and which trim levels you like the most. I have here the SR5 Premium with the 4x4 and a couple of accessories like the 17-inch SEMA wheels wrapped in these Bridgestone Dueler tires. Tires really make or break the experience with both SUVs. From the factory, the Bridgestones that Toyota has to offer is really one of the best and highest quality tire choices that you can get. All of the aggressive Toyotas are going to come with those Nitto Grapplers, which I've already expressed my dislike for those tires. They are pretty loud both at the city speeds and highway speeds, and the driving performance is simply average. Like, they don't feel that great. In fact, the driving experience becomes pretty mushy with those Nitto Grapplers, so those are definitely something that I would swap out for. Perhaps go with the new KO3s that came out. Apparently that's a big upgrade over the KO2s, especially out on the road. And also, I would look into the Continental all-terrain tire, the Terrain Contacts. Apparently those are some of the best on-road all-terrains that you can get. If I was spending my own money, those would be the tires that I would go for. But yeah, with that established, the 4Runner, it's simply like a luxury car driving experience compared to the Bronco. It's so much quieter, and it also rides a bit better as well. Mind you, this also goes for the Outer Banks that I drove as well. And it's really not the Bronco's fault because it's also really trying to compete with the Jeep Wrangler as well. A lot of the body components on the Bronco, you can actually remove them, like the doors, the roof. So because of that, it's never going to be as quiet or as refined as a solid body vehicle like the 4Runner. You cannot remove the doors. We have a solid roof here. So yes, it's just natural that the 4Runner is going to be a quieter experience, less road noise and less wind noise. The engine We have here the tried and true 4-liter V6. And when it comes to handling, honestly, they both feel pretty similar. You know, both vehicles offer a decent amount of confidence for everyday handling and, you know, everyday maneuvers. It's not really a big deal in either one. I am pretty impressed with the way the Bronco handles, even with that Sasquatch package. I'll take a few more corners here, but I will say one big difference is the brakes. The brakes feel so much stronger in the 4Runner. You have a lot more confidence there. But regarding the turning in both vehicles, the body lean is really well contained. Your occupants, they're not going to be toppling over each other, which is great. But regarding the stability of both of these SUVs, I can't really give you an accurate comment because I know for a fact the 4Runner falls flat on its face when it's windy outside. It gets blown around all over the place. When it's not windy, the 4Runner does just fine. It's not really an issue. With the Bronco, in my 1 week of testing it, I haven't had any crazy wind. So I can't accurately give you a comment on the Bronco and its performance on a windy day out on the highway. But from what I've experienced, I was doing some really good speeds out on the highway with the Bronco, and it genuinely feels great. I feel like it handles itself a little bit better than the 4Runner out on the highway. It feels really stable. Granted, we have big, heavy mud terrain tires that are 315 wide on the Bronco with that Sasquatch package. But even the Outer Banks, I mean, all of these vehicles, they did really well out on the highway. And certainly both of these vehicles do better than the Jeep Wrangler. Now the engine, we have here the tried and true 4-liter naturally aspirated V6 with the 4Runner. I do love it. The engine has plenty of character. It's made it to this 5-speed automatic. But you would be surprised. I actually like the way the Bronco's engine feels more in the real world. And that's the 4-cylinder Bronco, mind you. It's not even the V6. I'll talk more about that during the Bronco driving segment. Don't get me wrong, I don't hate this V6. I obviously like it very much, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to buy this vehicle. The overall 4Runner experience is very organic and connected. The Bronco even more so though. So if you like that raw driving experience, the Bronco is kind of where it's at. But this is the perfect balance and blend for me between refinement and being connected to the road and having a pretty awesome engine in its own respect. So I don't have a problem there. Fuel economy sucks with both. That turbo 4-cylinder, like these turbo engines, they offer a lot of useful low-end grunt out on the streets. However, the fuel economy is not something that us consumers really benefit from. The Bronco is rated to get like 18 city, 18 highway. It drops a little bit more with the Sasquatch package. The 4Runners, they get 16 in the city and 19 out on the highway. Other aspects, you know, visibility, placing these vehicles out on the road, that's not an issue with either one. Although I think the 4Runner is slightly more traditional and maybe a little bit easier to drive. Both SUVs are about the same size. However, you do have that tire on the back of the Bronco, so that adds a little bit extra length, if you will. But living with the SUVs, parking them, even fitting it inside of a garage should not be an issue with either vehicle. And we all know that both SUVs are very much off-road capable. That's not a problem. And the last thing that everyone loves to rave about regarding these Toyotas, at least, is how reliable it is. Granted, you buy a brand new car, it's going to come with a new car warranty. It's not a big deal, but if you want to buy something and keep it after the warranty has expired, I guess the 4Runner would be a better choice, and that's one of the reasons why I decided to purchase one. Although if you're really that worried, you can just pay up and extend the factory warranty of the Bronco. It's not a big deal. But regardless, let's go ahead and let's hop in the Bronco and continue to talk about the various differences between the two SUVs. Okay, now we are in the 2024 Bronco. This is the Big Bend with the Sasquatch package on it. And one of the first things I notice is the brake pedal. It's going to require a lot more travel for you to make this Bronco come to a stop compared to the 4Runner. It's mainly because this does way more, especially with this package and with the larger tires and wheels. So all of that is going to require more brake effort to bring this to a stop. It's definitely not bad. I mean, it's just something you have to get used to, and it's a pretty easy fix as well. You can always easily upgrade the brake pads in any vehicle, but I just thought I would bring that up because this is pretty much also the case with the Outer Banks that I tested. It was a little bit better than this, but I would say overall the 4Runner does have stronger brakes. Anyway, that aside, driving the Bronco, this is a pretty raw experience for sure. We naturally have here more tire noise and wind noise. Again, that's just part of the Bronco charm. I mean, we have all of these removable panels and doors, so that's just what you're going to get. If you go for a model without the Sasquatch package, you will have a little bit less tire noise coming through at least. But granted, considering we have 35-inch, 315 wide mud terrain tires, really the tire noise is not that bad. Honestly, the Nitto Grappler all-terrain tires in the 4Runner, that thing also produces quite a racket. But here, at least these are beefy, and if you really want to take this off-road, this can handle it. So all things considered, this Bronco, it's not bad considering the tires, and even the drive is not really affected. We have here a confidence-inspiring driving experience. The Bronco is never doing anything weird, like it's never tramlining or following the imperfections of the road. There's none of that going on. I always have plenty of confidence behind the wheel of the Bronco. It's just that the 4Runner has an extra added layer of cohesiveness in the way that it performs out on the street. So overall, in general, I will give the handling points to the 4Runner. Now, surprisingly, the engine, this is going to be another aspect of the Bronco that I actually prefer over the 4Runner, actually. Many of you are going to be shocked and surprised by that, because I get it. On paper, I mean, a vehicle that looks this cool and has this type of swagger, it is pretty pathetic to hear that it comes with a 4-cylinder on paper, but the numbers and the performance don't lie. This has more horsepower and torque than the NA V6 in the 4Runner. This has 300 horsepower, 325 pounds-feet of torque. But more importantly, it sounds decent. Yeah, it definitely gets up to speed really well, faster than the 4Runner in the real world. But more importantly, the sound is great. Yeah, for this little 4-cylinder to have such a powerful noise, I mean, it's just shocking how Ford has managed to do that. In fact, people ask me, oh, is there a turbo engine that you actually like? And I always respond with, the AMG stuff. That obviously sounds pretty good. They do a decent job of injecting character into their turbo engines. But most other vehicles are soulless, dreary, they sound like vacuum cleaners. This is not like that. This has like a deep truckish diesel type of sound. I don't know, it's hard to explain, but it sounds powerful and it sounds wholesome. It's a great deep tone that it has. I don't know how much of it is fake or real or whatever the case might be, but I love the way this sounds. So, yeah, surprisingly, I'm going to give the points to the Bronco for its drivetrain. In fact, I don't even think you need to step up to the twin-turbo V6 model. It's really not necessary because you have so much speed and thrust with just this 4-cylinder, and mind you, this is with the big, heavy Sasquatch package on it as well, with the larger, heavier tires. and this is still brisk and effortless out on the street. You just have so much low-end torque. And even out on the highway, when you step on it, this thing continues to pull to near triple-digit speeds without any issues. And that's what I'm saying. This is more than enough for street driving. Granted, the cons with this engine, I don't like the fact that you have to use premium fuel, or the fact that it's recommended, because in the real world, the fuel economy benefits are slim to none with these turbo engines. But I do appreciate just how engaging this vehicle feels to drive. It really feels like a early 2000s car that's been perfected. Same thing with the 4Runner as well, but in fact, the imperfections of this is adding to the engagement that you have. Having more wind noise, having more tire noise, it's just part of the charm with vehicles like this. But not to worry, you go with the Outer Banks or some of the other trim levels without the Sasquatch package. With regular tires, it's going to be an even more refined and slightly more comfortable driving experience as well. Because the other thing is, this does ride a little bit rougher than the 4Runner, and I do have the tire pressure set correctly for both vehicles. That's the other thing. Make sure the tire pressure is on point. That can fix a lot of issues that you might have with any vehicle. So it's correct here. Needs 39 in all four corners in the Bronco. And yeah, although some of the smaller bumps are being translated into the cabin space, it doesn't feel terrible in any way. It doesn't feel like you're just crashing over the road. By no means. It's just compared to the 4Runner, this is a little bit stiffer, but I don't mind it because it also helps with the handling of this SUV as well. So I would rather have them tune this to be a bit stiffer. But yeah, driving the Bronco out on the street, it's easy, no problem. You can place this out on the road. It's not an issue. It doesn't feel cumbersome in any way. Once you have your seating position and the mirrors adjusted accordingly, you should have no issue seeing around this. We have an electric powered steering rack with the Bronco as opposed to the hydraulic steering rack in the 4Runner, but surprisingly they both feel kind of similar. I like both steerings, actually. It's not an issue. But yeah, the other thing is, some of the compromises that this Bronco makes, it could be something that you want. For instance, you might like the fact that you can take off all the panels, the roof and all of that. It adds another layer to the experience. So all of that obviously depends on who you are, and there's way more trim levels to choose from for the Broncos. So you just have a lot more options for customizing this to your liking. So I think we get the point regarding the way both of these SUVs drive. Let's move on to some other aspects. Another area where Ford absolutely dominates over Toyota and Jeep is going to be in regard to crash test safety. The Bronco performs really well in the crash test according to IIHS. Jeep did update their side structure for 2024, so right now if you get a 24 JL Wrangler, that's going to be like the safest Wrangler that they've ever made. But regardless, it's still not going to hold a candle to the way the Ford performs in a crash test. And the 4Runner is so old at this point, they hadn't updated the structure of the 5th gen 4Runner for over a decade now, until 2025. So the 25 4Runner is obviously going to be very different. That should once again take the throne of being the safest in this type of class. But for right now, Ford holds the safety crown for sure. And yeah, the other thing is the new 2025 4Runner, it's also going to have a turbo 4-cylinder, but I guess people keep forgetting that it has more torque and more thrust than the naturally aspirated V6 or most naturally aspirated engines. Not that long ago, NA V8s struggled to make this type of power. So obviously the new 4Runner is going to be quicker than the NA V6. That's not going to be an issue. But another reason why I really like Ford's drivetrain, we also have the 10-speed automatic transmission. I'll just quickly end off on this. There's no lag with the Bronco. Not just the Bronco, all of the turbo engines from Ford, there's never any lag with them. I said the same thing about the Bronco Sport with the 3-cylinder and with the EcoBoost V6s as well. You put your foot down, you just collect speed without any issues. So that's another reason why I'm a huge fan of the turbo engines from Ford. So with that established, let's go ahead and let's park these vehicles and let's talk about the interior space, then we can conclude. Okay, now that we are stopped, let's quickly talk about this interior space. So the first thing you're going to notice is the 4Runner is going to be a little bit easier to get in and out of. But if you have children, it would be wise to get the side step for both vehicles because it would just make their lives a lot easier. The Sasquatch does sit up a little bit higher. This is a little bit more lifted over the regular Broncos. But once you're inside, I'm really pleased to report that both vehicles are super solid inside. With the Bronco here, everything is a rubberized, durable material that they're using here, just solid. Nothing is creaking or rattling in here. The center console, I mean, it doesn't even budge. So well done, Ford, and same thing with Toyota. That's another solid, indestructible interior right there. But overall, though, I suppose I would give the points to the Ford regarding the interior because we do have here a more modern interior space. It's a newer vehicle. We also have this massive infotainment screen that's beautifully implemented into the dash, and it comes with wireless Apple CarPlay and wireless Android Auto. It's easy to use. You still have physical buttons and switches for your HVAC, and if you get higher trims or if you get the Luxe package, you can also get things like a wireless charging pad as well. But in the Ford Bronco lineup, I personally think the Big Bend and the Outer Banks are the best value proposition. If you want the Sasquatch package, it's definitely wise to go with the Big Bend because that's going to be like your cheapest way of getting a Sasquatch. And the SUV I'm testing here is about $55,000. That's the MSRP. My SR5 Premium 4Runner, that cost $50K. And I happen to get that vehicle $2,000 under invoice. I'll share how I did that towards the end of this video. And there also seems to be some pretty good discounts and deals on the Bronco as well. Again, more on that later. But yeah, I would say that the seats in both SUVs are equally comfortable, although I have power seats in the 4Runner, whereas with the Bronco, it seems like you have manual seats across the board. And I even checked the Luxe package. Apparently that does not give you electronic seats, although I also saw an article on Google that says that certain models of the Bronco can come with powered seats. There's some confusion there, but when I was building a Bronco on Ford's website and I checked all the trims, apparently they all come with manual seats for the driver and the passenger. So that can be a turnoff for some. The other thing is we do have the hardtop Bronco, which I do like that. That's something I would personally pay up for. I like the way it looks, and it does add a bit more solidity, and it should be a quieter driving experience over the soft top. Although from my experience, they're both about the same in terms of how loud they are. But one thing I noticed with this hardtop is you get a lot more heat coming through from the roof. So if you have this thing parked out in the sun, you notice that this roof area gets really hot. So that's just something to watch out for. And there is a subtle amount of wind noise coming from this upper roof panel as well. It's super slight. That's not the issue. The main problem is the amount of heat that could potentially come through. So I would try to park this in a garage if possible. But aside from that, I have not had any other issues with these panels. And also because you are able to remove the doors with the Bronco, they put the window switches in the middle here. And the armrest space is a little bit less in the Bronco than with the 4Runner. But you have plenty of headroom in both SUVs, and it seems like with the Bronco you have 3 inches more rear legroom than the 4Runner, but when I sit in both, they both feel about the same. In fact, the 4Runner feels a little bit more spacious in the rear, weirdly enough. I don't know how that's possible, but that's just the way I feel. But they're both pretty similar though, that's not an issue. And the trunk space is also where the 4Runner seems to win. There's about 9 more cubic feet of rear trunk space, although when you look at them both, they seem pretty similar. It's just that the 4Runner seems to have a bit more depth to the trunk space. Regardless though, I would say the 4Runner is a more livable package, easier to get in and out of, feels more traditional. Yeah, I'm really happy with the seating space and the trunk of the 4Runner as well. Although with the Bronco, you can lift up the little flap and you have some additional storage if you need that. And apparently the 4Runner can tow about 5,000 pounds, whereas the Broncos can only tow 3,500 pounds, unless you go with the Raptor version, which can tow 4,500 pounds. That's another difference between the two. I don't do any towing, but I just thought I would throw that out there. Anyway, let's go ahead and let's conclude this video. Alright, so I am a huge fan of both SUVs. Honestly, I would be happy rocking either one. They're both really that good. The price point is amazing. The looks, the swagger of both, I appreciate that as well. So personally, I don't think you're going wrong with either one, but as many are going to point out, the 4Runner, it's really the last of its kind. It's built in Japan. It's got that tried and true drivetrain with the 4-liter V6 and the 5-speed automatic transmission. It is the slightly more livable package, and it makes sense because that's a true solid SUV, no removable panels there. And when you go with a good set of tires, the 4Runner really becomes refined, but that's also the case with the Bronco as well. If you skip the Sasquatch or you simply swap out these tires with some all-terrains from either Continental or the BF Goodrich KO3s, you should have a much more refined driving experience with the Bronco as well. At least that's what I experienced with the Outer Banks, but you can't really get away from the road noise and the wind noise. That's just naturally going to be more with the Bronco. But the main reason why I wanted to do this video was to bring to your attention some of the amazing lease deals that can be had with both SUVs. So Ford is really trying to clear out their 2023 inventory, and in the description box of this video I'm going to have a free resource brought to you by AutoCompanion. It's going to be a free leasing calculator that shows you the residual values, the interest rate of a lease, which is super powerful, and the incentives that you can qualify for in your local area. But when I played around with some numbers, a $45,000 to $55,000 Bronco, depending on whether you go with the Sasquatch or not, they lease for around the $400 to $500 a month range, and that includes dealer fees, taxes, and even with no money down, assuming you have perfect credit, of course. But yeah, I was just really impressed by that. So I think it would be wise to scoop up some of these 2023 Broncos while they still have lease support, because I'm not sure how much longer they're going to continue to offer those deals, because I'm recording this video in June of 2024. And when I was doing those calculations, I was assuming about a 10% off discount from MSRP. Depending on the dealership in your local area, that could be a little bit far-fetched, I know, but that's what I would try to go for, because 2023, that's literally a year old at this point. So definitely try to reach out to a motivated dealer that's had a vehicle on the lot for a very long time, and you can certainly use AutoCompanion's free calculator as a resource to negotiate and to come up with some numbers. All right, and I also said that I managed to get my 4Runner for about $2,000 under invoice, so it was about $50K, and I got it for $45,000. How did I do that? Well, I reached out to one of the largest Toyota brokers in the country. His name is Jim, and he's got dealerships in Pennsylvania and California. He also has nationwide shipping available, although that's something you have to pay for. And he has some of the lowest Toyota prices in the country. So if you want to work with Jim, he just has a phone number. You just text him. And if you mention Meyn Motor Group, he'll take some money off of his broker fee, because he does charge a fee to access his amazing deals. And this is the second time that I've actually used his service. So I can't recommend Jim enough if you want to scoop up some of these 4Runners while you still can. They also have pretty good lease deals, assuming you put down either MSDs or you do a one-pay lease. The 4Runner can be really cheap as well, but you can talk to Jim for more information regarding that. But yeah, all the information will be down below in the description box. And yeah, that's the main thing. I just wanted my audience to be aware of what's possible in this current market with both of these SUVs. It really just depends on who you are and what you appreciate more. And I think in this video, I did a pretty good job explaining to you all of the nuanced differences between both SUVs. And yeah, I would choose both of these over the Jeep Wrangler for sure. Although I did see some amazing deals on the plug-in hybrid Wranglers, I would still skip that, and I would rather work something out on a Bronco or a 4Runner instead. That's just my preference, but you can do as you please. Hopefully you found value with this content. If you did, make sure to like and subscribe. But thank you so much for watching this video. Take care and goodbye.